All right, Lions fans, let's talk about increasing and actually improving the Lions roster or overall organization. And I have a few, I guess, I have a few thoughts about it. And I'm going to start off with what to do with Stafford, um, and I start off with that because he is the face of the team. He's the head of the team. I often make comments about Stafford and saying like it's Matthew Stafford's responsibility, and some could say that could be me saying that it's his fault. Well, okay, even if you want to go in that direction, we can go in that direction. But I would say it's his responsibility. Why I say that? This team goes as the quarterback goes. There's a reason why the quarterback is noted and deemed the face of the franchise because it is the brain thrust or the brain trust of the organization. It has the well if the quarterback or the individual that's playing the quarterback position is um is in a rightful place, they are very like cerebral. You know, they can see beyond what they see, not just on the field, but off the field, before the field. They just so advanced when they are able to be who they are. In most cases, a lot of quarterbacks is not developed. They now you go through the rigorous training of maybe through uh, you go through high school, you go through different leagues, and then you go to college, and then you go to the pros. That develops your I guess your physical mechanics and so forth. And but it somehow it I guess it's supposed to um, sharpen the mental capacity, but in most cases it doesn't because it through those three levels it actually emphasizes the physical talent. Why? Because the physical talent puts people in the seats. That's why a lot of good quarterbacks get overlooked, i.e., Tom Brady. And the reason why a guy like Tom Brady gets, or let's say Tom Brady, let me rephrase that: Joe Montana, then Tom Brady. There's a reason why those two, in my opinion, are considered like the best two quarterbacks that I have ever seen, even in comparison to a Dan Marino or a John Elway or you could say a Dan Founts, or of anybody like that. Or um, so there is, or even a Steve Young. I would say that. Uh, the reason why I would say those two, Joe Montana and Tom Brady, is because it wasn't about their talent per se, as much as it was about what they saw. And what they saw something that was so ahead of its time. And I'm not talking about times in terms of years, but when they was on the field, they saw things that everybody else couldn't see. That actually made the coach job a lot better. That makes the general manager job a lot better, and it makes the players job a lot better. When I harp on Stafford is not that type of gentleman or that. Let me phrase that type of candidate of a quarterback. He is stuck behind his talent. Now, someone gave me this pointer about Stafford, and it's a great point that I never really considered. I asked the gentleman, I said, what is Matthew Stafford's strength? And of course, I'm normally used to people going to their physicality, but this person actually took a different approach, a different angle. And they said Matthew Stafford's um, strength is actually his competitiveness. And I said, well, I'm looking at that. I never would have considered that because he is very competitive. That is a strength, but that shouldn't be that. I mean, that shouldn't be his main strength. Being a competitive, being a competitive is why you sign up for the job, or that's like almost and listen to the armed forces. You're not that you're a competitive nature. That's like you go into the armed forces because of like you want to serve. Okay, that's like the same level. But what separates you from one soldier to the next soldier is that you don't stop at being competitive. You have to get to the place where you have to be able to see from multiple angles. So in most cases, that deals with the individual in their personal life, how they make their average decision. Is it based upon what they see? In other words, is it based upon facts or is it based upon the truth? And I will go into a different spiel about the difference between facts and truth, because there is a definite difference between facts and truth. But with that being said, if I were to say about, Matthew Stafford, the reason why I can't get behind that bus, and even if it will cost me a cap hit of 19 plus millions, I would take it to dodge the bullet of losing him for this very reason. Well, I often go back to things that is to sports teams that have longevity. I don't go to one hit wonders. Some teams may go to what's moderate, what's popular now, or what's hot now. Excuse me. The average team that's hot now doesn't have longevity. So I don't reference them as my template of success. If you hear me on my videos, you hear me go back to the 90s or to the 80s and 90s. And the reason I do that because they had long-term success. And the last franchise that had long-term success was New England Patriots. And the reason why they had long-term success is because they have based their template or their blueprint off the ones who did it in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s. The average team or the average franchise is not going off those templates of what Bill Belichick has did. Now, they may try to take pieces from Bill Belichick and actually try to implement as their head, as like they are Bill Belichick, i.e. what the Lions did with Quinn and Patricia. Well, that's not the template. The template with Bill Belichick is that Bill Belichick was so well-rounded because he would evolve from one position to the next position. He would go up the ranks. So in other words, we're talking about a guy who's patient, right? Or a guy that's eager to learn. A guy that's not stunted or stopped at the ability of what he knows. So there's no room for him to be arrogant, even though there's an opportunity to be arrogant, but there's no room for him to be arrogant because he's eager to learn, right? So now, okay, so if you got Bill Belichick, he goes into camp and you got Drew Bledsoe. And you got a rookie that you drafted in the 6th round, but you got that rookie there for a reason, right? It's like when they would draft Matt Castle or any other quarterback. I think he draft Jimmy Garoppolo? Jimmy G Garoppolo. This is a tongue twister. Okay. Jalopolo. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm going to harp on Tom Brady as well as I'm going to harp on Joe Montana as arguably the two best quarterbacks ever is because they're winners, right? And the reason why they're winners is because they don't rely on their talent, i.e., the NFL have always done this because it's money first. I get it, and I'm not faulting them for that. It will tell you to harp on the talent first, and then if they have competitiveness, you could build off of that. I go against that. What makes Tom Brady so great, I'm skipping forward. What makes Bill Belichick so great is like his foresight, what he's able to see. But that's based upon the atmosphere that he was around. He was around one of the most brilliant minds there were in terms of just this grasping thing. And Bill Parcells, right? Never mind, he indulged into the Lions organization. He went on his own with the Cleveland, and he did sort of things, different things. But as he goes up the ranks, he wasn't always a head coach, and he was always a defensive coordinator. He was a defensive position coach. He was a linebacker coach. He was this coach. He was that coach. But when he's coaching, he's never looking at it from just the position of what he have learned. He's always looking to learn other positions. So he would go over to the offensive side and learn the offensive line. He would go to the secondary. He would do different things, right? Because he's sharpening his competitive, or he's gone past his competitive nature. He wants to compete. And what I mean by that, he wants to, that's the reason why he is in the position, because he probably was a once-time player. So he has the competitive nature to compete. But he goes past the competition and becomes something more. And so with that being said, he's able to draft a guy in Tom Brady. Once again, he's overlooked, like goes in the 6th round, right? It's not about where you get drafted, it's about who they draft. Like, what does the general manager see that everybody else don't see? And so if that general manager is actually past the competitive nature or past himself where he's not just eager to learn, he constantly puts himself in a position to learn. Not before he get the position of responsibility and authority, but he's constantly applying himself to learn. The Lions organization don't really go to that type of well. They go to what's hot. But the reason why they go to what's hot because that's how they built their franchise with with the automotive thing. You're only going to let me just change that. You're only going to build it how you are. You're not going to build it any other kind of way. Well, you could try to build it some other kind of way, like somebody else who have done it successfully. You could try to do it like them, but you're not them. So the moment that you attempt to do it like them is going to fall apart because you don't know what it takes for them to be them, to why they did what they did to get the results that they're getting. So Bill Belichick drafts Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is nowhere near, according to the combine, nowhere near a candidate as a quarterback. But you will always get his vote as a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees. Why? Because he sees what they don't see. Now, that goes with a twofold. He went to what he had in him was more than enough for Bill Belichick to work with all that he knew. Only thing Bill Belichick needs is a vessel that he can put inside of them what he sees. And Bill Belichick needs two things in a quarterback. Be able to put what he has a capacity to be able to put what he knows inside of them, and then them having the will to basically see what he sees and go on the field and produce it. That will allow them to leap past their actual abilities. The average quarterback comes in and they know him for their talent instantly, right? You got whatever that's hot. In my era of football, they had like a floodgate of quarterbacks. If you notice, there's a era of football, and there will always be a flood of quarterbacks at one time. Okay, I got 3 stints. When I started noticing about football, you had the John Elways, I think it was Dan O'Brien. I think he was quarterback for the Jets. You had John Elway. You had Jim Kelly. You had Phil Simms. And I'm missing some other ones. I want to say Vinny Testaverde, but I'm not sure. I think Bernie Kosar, I believe. It was like in that time frame, in that one draft, it was like a list of quarterbacks that came out. Maybe like a good 7 quarterbacks came out. And everybody was trying to find that face of their franchise. There's only a few that have it because some of them got a quarterback that was a little bit more than just a quarterback, or just, let me phrase that, a little bit more than just being competitive. So, and then the second wave that I remember is when the Donovan McNabbs, the Dante Culpeppers, and all of them that came out that draft, right? I think you had maybe like a good 6 or 7, because I think Tim Couch came out that draft. You had quite a few quarterbacks that came out that year. And then the last draft that I noticed that came out is with the what's the Donovan McNabb with the last one? I'm missing one. I'm missing a third crop of quarterbacks that came out that actually was going to these teams as like in the draft, that one draft. And it could be I don't want to say that the Chicago Bears current quarterback draft. And I believe that's the draft that not with Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes, and all them, they came out. So anyway, what I'm saying is, I don't believe you can win with Matthew Stafford because, in fact, he stopped at being a competitor. And what I mean by that goes a twofold. because the organization would have to change their ways of how they're being an organization for him to be better. And you're talking about him being at his 12th year and he's constantly being hurt. There's no more room for him to grow here because the Lions will have to restructure everything they know how to do it, which probably would be another 3 years. Now, I'm not talking about restructuring in terms of rebuilding or being competitive as a team. I'm talking about in terms of how they run their team as an organization. Okay, I say 3 years because it probably would take them 3 years to get out their own way, unless they break all what they know. And I mean, if any fan is talking about this team need to do a rebuild, the only thing that this team need to rebuild is how they run their organization. If they can get out their own way, and let's say they allow, okay, I'll give you a candidate as a general manager. Let's say they allow Bill Parcells to come here. Now, he's a guy that is notorious for his record and so forth, but he also is notorious for making the statement that, okay, if you're going to hire the cook, you got to be able to let him get his own groceries, which is to say is that you're going to have to let him do it his way. You can't really tie up his hands to tell you who's going to be able to do this, who's not going to be able to do this, who's going to be able to stay, who's not going to be able to stay. You got to be able to let him run his own ship. So I say that to say, if the Lions is going to do a rebuild per se, it's not with the personnel of player personnel. It's not even with the upper management per se. Maybe so. If whoever the general manager comes in, they want to bring their guys up, be in the top seats. I get it. But the real rebuild is actually with the organization within itself. How the owners run the team. And in other words, they will have to do it in a way that they haven't done it in 50 plus years, which is to be actually innovative. Now, you can go outside and try to get outside help, but they did that before. Somebody may say, well, they're going to NFL players. Well, that's I get that. They have always went outside for help. They have always done it, unless they went inside. But see, they have done it one or two ways. They either go outside for NFL help. That's how you get I believe that's how you got Bob Quinn here. And you may even brought in Steve Mariucci. You have brought in certain things. Okay, Matt Millen brought in Steve Mariucci. Okay, but the Mordenwigs, that was a consensuous up and coming pick. They say he's hot as a coordinator and so forth. He's probably going to be the next wave of being a a coach. So they have done it ways of going outside of what they know because they limited of what they know. Their mainstay is with the Ford Motor Company. It has nothing to do with football. Football is a totally different animal because that's more so entertainment than it is anything, right? They went outside the box a few times and tried to do it a different way. And they have tried to do it. They did it. They recruited inside the house, outside the house. They went to the National Football League for assistance. They have done it so many different ways. Then average fan may say that they never went to a player such as Barry Sanders or Chris Spielman. What does that mean? That because they were considered good players don't mean they're good, have good IQ. About having a foresight, and that's why I don't agree with that idea of that making that considering that a smart move on the Lions organization behalf. I disagree with that because once again, you're saying you asking them to help you to find you a good coach, a good candidate as a general manager, maybe from a perspective of a player. I guess you could say that is a start, but the Rod Woods and everything else, everything that's a part of that all has to go because that's part of he's going to bring. See, what I'm saying is you're asking Rod Wood to change how he's been doing it since he came to the organization. This is how he looks at it because whoever that you're going to bring in here, you will have to give them a clean slate to let them do it the way that they do it. If you don't, you're going to basically do a retread of how you've been doing it, which is the very reason why they've been losing for 50 plus years. They never get somebody to clean slate. Because it's almost impossible to give them a clean slate because that means the organization as a whole will have to change its entire custom. It will have to get past the tradition. And that's the problem. If it's with the Forest as an organization, that how they have ran it, if it makes money and it doesn't put it in deficit, it's considered a success. That could go to like products. If anybody is an entrepreneur and they're manufacturing a product, if it may not be the best quality, but if it's serviceable enough not to be a deficit, it's considered a positive or asset. And that's nowhere how I would love to do business. Now, if your business is going to be ran like that, then how you run everything is going to be based upon that. So you're not going to really give your very best. You're going to give just enough to make it stay afloat. And if you notice, that's how the Lions organization, or how they teams, or how they coaches, or how the general manager, or how they get their personnel have been just that. Every now and again, you'll get a rare gem. And in my history of knowing the Lions, I will start off with one in particular, and I would say Billy Sims. Billy Sims was a rare gem. Then you go from him, you go to Barry Sanders. You go from Barry Sanders, you go to Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, you go to Ndamukong Suh. Those are rare gems that goes past the way that the Lions have built how they do things. They go past them so much so that the Lions organization really relies on them to lead them. The reason why the Lions organization leans on them to lead them is because the Lions they refuse to tear down their image of how they do things. What I mean by how they do things, they do it in a way that they do. It's almost like applying some ability, but not not all out effort like 100%. If I can give you, let's say 65% or less, and it doesn't put me in a deficit, it's considered successful for them. And for most people, they would say, like, well, they're giving their very best. No, they're giving what actually is considered acceptable. Let's say, for example, if they gave 100% of their effort, right? I mean, they're all in, and that led the Lions to go into the NFC championship game. Then why are you not competing that recipe? I mean, what not competing? Why are you not repeating that recipe? Because it's not who you are. That was considered a lightning in a bottle, a fluke of an opportunity. Somebody say, how is that a fluke? Because they didn't sustain it, because that's not who they are. If that's who they are, it would continue to be night in and night out, night in and night out. That's the reason why Bill Belichick is so successful, or why the 49ers were successful with Bill Walsh. And that's why the Giants were successful with Bill Parcells, because they're not being something that they're not, or they're not afraid to give their 100% at something. They don't do it just enough to get some results. They do it to be the very best. Now, the Fords don't do it to be the very best. They do it just enough. But somebody can say they're giving it very best. They're giving all that they know. No. They gave the limit that they have taught themselves of over the years have became their very best. And that's not their very best. Their very best is to actually get out their way. But they don't get out their way. And it's my firm belief that's the reason why Bobby Lane was no longer a part of this organization, because they had an opportunity to do it away from the very best. If you're talking about when Bobby Lane was with the Lions was like arguably the best team, if not a top 3 best team in the league. They were winning championships because they had the best team, right? So at that time, when they buy the team, they go away from the structure of actually doing it the very best way. And they went to a way that actually, where it was about money first. What I mean about money first, and it's about, if I can give you 50% and still make 100% of the profit, I'm going to do it. That's what you call cheating. That's called developing a system, or that looks like you're giving your very best, but it's not giving your very best. So you basically, it's like you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like you're being very selfish, or a thief nonetheless. And you want to keep all the goods to yourself, or some people, let's better phrase it, having your cake and eat it too. So you really don't know how to actually be competitive per se. You know how to get by. And that way of getting by, you have somewhat success from it. I guess I would say it's not the success where you're going to be respected for. It's the success that you're going to have a name recognition for, but it won't be respected as like, I can't do without the forwards. It will be the respect of the level like, okay, this is like a good alternative. And if you notice, when the Lions draft their players, they don't get the very best. They get the alternative. They get the alternative. They don't never get the very best. You got 3 shots that they got the very best. You got once again Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and Ndamukong Suh. I'm going to say Ndamukong Suh was the best player of his draft. His stats and all that stuff made whatever. I say he was the best player of that draft. And of course, somebody may argue against that. Now, somebody may say, I say Calvin Johnson was the best player of his draft. Of course, you got guys like Patrick Peterson that came out of there, Adrian Peterson, and you have different other guys that came out of that draft. I think Calvin Johnson was the best player of that draft. And I think Barry Sanders was the best player of his draft. It was like, whoa. You had Derek Thomas, you had Deion Sanders, and you have a few other players that came out of that draft. I believe even Troy Aikman came out of that draft. But I would say by far, Barry Sanders was the best player of that draft. Now, people say like, well, no, Derek Thomas and Deion Sanders was Hall of Famers, and Deion Sanders considered a GOAT. Deion Sanders is considered a GOAT of basically of the other players doing their job. What I mean by that, Deion Sanders could lock down a whole left side, right, or a whole right side. He could lock down the best receiver. But it does a team no good if he does that if the other 10 players don't do their job. Barry Sanders was a guy that he did it with, just give him the ball, and majority of the plays that he made was without an offensive line, was without a quarterback, was without a defense. He did what he did based upon him, so he carried the franchise. I could say the same thing. Well, you could almost say give a same self account to like Adrian Peterson, what he did with Minnesota, but Minnesota was well-rounded before he got there. Remember, they was coming off the cusp of having Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and so forth. Even though they're going into a lane that's different from them, but they had something to build off of. When Barry Sanders came to Detroit, they had nothing. You could say Billy Sims, but Billy Sims wasn't in the league long enough to actually establish that foundation that, okay, this is a place to be, or I could build a team on my franchise and so forth. Barry Sanders did it for what, 9 to 10 years of that elite status from the moment that he stepped onto the field. So, and like I said, the force struck the genie in the bottle like 3 times. And I say that to say, until the force get out their way, this organization gonna keep repeating, regardless who. Okay, I will give the new owner a fair shake if she gets out her own way. That means what I mean by that is that she can't give 85%. And even if it draws some success, she has to give it 100% every time. And if she give it 100% every time, that will allow her to restructure what's around her. If she don't give it 100% in every decision, where that's more so being honest of doing the right thing in every decision, not to cut it because it can gain you money here, not to cut it because it can give you this kind of, respect there, or some sort of thing of that deal. They're gonna really have to rebuild from the top down. The organization rebuild starts with the top down. You can do all the rebuilds on the field all you would like, and it's still gonna come out the same result because the head is still the head. Until the head changes his way, the rest of the body is still gonna be the same. So, and that's the reason why I say Matthew Stafford won't be successful here, because the head will have to change, and I think it would take, if they do it the right way, it don't take that long. All they have to do is go up against the grain. Every decision that how they've done it so far, go up against the grain of how they do it. I don't know if that's possible. They're capable. It's a possibility. Definitely, it's a possibility. But I don't know that they're willing to do it. So with that being said, you're gonna constantly keep putting Matthew Stafford in a position like he's in now, where he's at. You're allowing him to go on the field because he is a competitor, quote unquote, and you allow him to go out there to get hurt. They said, like, according to the reports, now that he has a bad ankle, but he's continued to practice. He's not concerned about his family. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. This is what separates Tom Brady, Joe Montana from guys like Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. Now, Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers have the talent, and I would go to the extent of Patrick Mahomes or even the upcoming quarterbacks that are considered talented and so forth, right? What separates Joe Montana and Tom Brady from them because they don't rely on their athletic ability. They don't rely on them just being a competitive. They're very smart individuals. They're just smart. They can adapt to an environment. Now, you may have to give them certain pieces to work with, but they ask for very specific pieces. They ask for pieces that actually is going to do it the right way. So even if they can get into a guy's head that has done it the wrong way, if there's a little spot in there, them willing to do it the right way. Not argue against it, but willing to. The Lions got a bunch of players on their team that don't want to do it the right way because they don't have to. They come to this organization saying, like, this place is desperate, and the reason why they're approaching it as that is desperate because look at the contracts that they have to look what it takes for the Lions to get these certain type of players over here. Even if the fan will say that these are bench players, well, the bench players don't have to. A bench player in Detroit can actually be a Hall of Famer here. Not here, but overall. They can actually legitimately be a Hall of Famer. Why? Because that's how Detroit has done it. We have Detroit itself as a city, as a culture, as an environment, has developed more diamonds among the rough than they actually have just being able to birth a diamond. So, so people say that's not true because you got Stevie Wonder, you got the Temptations and everything else. I get that. But after that, what do you have? The next wave of success came where? That was a lightning in a bottle. But that was a time when Detroit was booming. So the diamond kind of like came out of the rough. You know, it was booming. But it wasn't rough overall. Now, after the riots hit, now you're talking about it's rough. What diamond came out of that? Not too many. So this is where you get a guy like a Ben Wallace that comes out of the rough, or a Chauncey Billups comes out of the rough. But every now and again, you could get that one guy who comes out of the rough, but at the same time that supersedes past your expectation, like an Isaiah Thomas. So Matthew Stafford, I don't believe he can win here because how they done him for so long and how they continue to do him for so long. Continue to do him is the reason why you can't win with Stafford here. And that's the reason why I say move on without him. But if I were to go up against my own statement about letting him go, I'm not saying let go of Stafford because you can't win with him. I'm saying you let go of Stafford because you can't win here with him. I'm not saying Stafford is incapable of winning or incompetent to win, or you can't win with him if you do it right with him. I'm saying that the organization won't do it right with him. So somebody say, like, well, then why would you get rid of him? I'm like, well, he's the best asset that I have that could give me assets, arguably. So now somebody may say, like, no, that's not true because you can't get much for him. They will. Are you kidding me? Even if there is a cap hit, or even if there's a franchise that will actually take on part of the cap hit, they will get a Matthew Stafford. Why? Because Matthew Stafford is a guy that can get you over. If that organization, if the owner of that organization saying, I want to win now, and like not win now, that's something to say because you want to actually be that type of a person. But they actually said, like, I have built all the pieces. Matthew Stafford's the guy to get me over the top. There's two teams that I can see him going to and instantly become a Super Bowl contender. Not playoff contender. No. They are actually will go to the NFC title game or the AFC title game. That's two organizations. I would say that's Denver and that's Dallas Cowboys. Those are two organizations that I can see. I would even throw in a 49ers organization that you can actually throw a Matthew Stafford with those three teams, and they will actually be in contention, regardless who is the team to beat. If it's Kansas City, if it's Tampa Bay, no matter who's the team to beat, if you get Stafford on one of those three teams, they will be able to compete with them for the Super Bowl. I'm almost a guarantee. Why I say that? Because Stafford is polished to go to a franchise that's actually that's doing it the right way, that has done it the right way. And I see those three teams that's doing it the right way. The only problem with Denver is that the fact is John Elway can never get a quarterback to do what he saw himself do. And the only one that I can see himself do that is Matthew Stafford. And he could draft quarterbacks all he would like. He could bring in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is not well rounded. Joe Flacco he is a guy that is his success is based off of the defense that was around him or the team that was around him. Only thing he had to do was be clock management or game management, possession type deal. Just don't do nothing to lose the game. But you don't need him to be the brain thrust of the team, because Ray Lewis was the brain thrust of the team. The team went as Ray Lewis went. Bottom line. You can say you had Ed Reed, you had Terrell Suggs, you could have all those different players on their team. Saragusa, you have even the guy that we got here. I can't think of his name, the D tackle. But anyway, you can have all those over there. The team went as Ray Lewis went. So Joe Flacco doesn't have to do anything. All Joe Flacco has to do is get out of his own way. That's what I was saying about you could win with Matthew Stafford when Quinn and Patricia was here. You could win with Matthew Stafford if they got out their own way. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was a battle struggle with the upper part and the lower part, that they refused to they refused to take the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hand. That would have extended his career. That would extend not just his career, but his time on the field. It would be least likely for him to get injured and get hurt. But it would take away him from being a competitor of what he does best. When the pressure is on, he shows up. All right. So Matthew Stafford really wouldn't be Matthew Stafford, or what he's good at being, how he's good at being Matthew Stafford. Yet they would have been actually in contention to win. Now, with the way that the team was, okay, let me say it this way. Why I would continue to support how I could say Quinn and Patricia could have actually got them to a Super Bowl is because this one way, the team is built to be going to the Super Bowl. Now they say, no, look at this defense. It's terrible. No, the defense is not playing basically because they have no reason to play. Then the fans may say, well, they can play for their paycheck. No, once again, it goes back how the organization is built. If the organization is built that I can give 50% and reap 100% of the profit, that is considered their ceiling of success. And they have done that for 50 years. So how do you think the players are going to, the people that they bring here, how do you think they're going to be? Patricia does not have to give 100% here. Bob Quinn doesn't have to give 100%. Jim Schwartz, everybody come here, they don't have to give 100%. When they first get here, they give you that 100%. They don't have to do it anymore because they see how it's ran. Once they see how it's ran, that 100% decreases. Like you saw potential in Patricia the first year. But soon they got Snacks, you saw the instant change. Okay, Snacks was that heck of a player, but what they already had, they needed a player like Snacks. And when Snacks got here, the defense went from a bottom filler to a top filler. And so that was a carryover. But Matt Patricia does not have to repeat what he started in the first year. He does not have to keep going. Because how it's done here, you don't have to give 100% max. You could give 50% max. As long as you get some results, it's not in a deficit, you can keep your job. So, all right. So somebody said, well, how does that work with Matt Millen for him being as long as he did? The people that he got here, he drafted, 4 receivers, right? And out of the 4, he drafted Calvin Johnson. The first 3 were considered a bust, right? So he should have been fired. These are first-round draft picks, and all 3 striking out, right? Even though you do trade Roy Williams and you trade him to Dallas Cowboys and get some picks from him in return. I get that. That's true. Actually, that wasn't even him. That was actually, I believe that was that was Mayhew that did that, I believe. But anyway, going to Matt Millen, why he still had his position, because every time he would draft something and do something, the fans would get on board. They're not losing any money. Now, from a fan's perspective, they're not getting the best talent, they're not getting the best team, they're not winning. It didn't matter. The Force like, we're making money. We're not losing money, we're making money. The one question to Matt Millen are they being asked? One question they asked Matt Millen, how was our attendance? Even when we was at the Pontiac Silverdome, no. Even when we was at Ford Field, first get up and coming and all that good stuff, how was the attendance? We're still getting sellouts. We're still doing this. We're still doing pretty good. Okay, you keep your job. I guarantee you, if the fans wasn't coming into those seats and it wasn't going in that parking structure where you got to pay X amount of dollars to get in that parking structure and all that good stuff, they wasn't making any money from that, Matt Miller wouldn't be here as long as he did, because that's a deficit. Once again, if I can give you 50% but get 100% asset back in return, I don't have to give you 100% effort. And if you look at how Quinn and Patricia, how they came when they first came in here, they came in willing to give you 100%. Same thing with any player that they get, how they go from giving you 100%, or they gave you 100% somewhere else, but here they don't give you 100%. How it's done up at the top. The top doesn't give you the 100%. The fans may say, yes, they do. They do this. No. They give you just enough to get you into the seats. They give you just enough to support them or give them a fan base. They give you just enough. So you get a move like, okay, let's go bring in Barry Sanders and Chris Spielman. That's just enough. But if she doesn't do that in everything, then it's just the same. It's doing the same thing how it was done with the previous ownership. Do just enough, and if you can get a greater asset, you do it. Now, people say that's just business. That's the point. What I'm saying, as long as this team is ran as a business, they will never win, because they don't have to win. It's based upon business. Now, majority of the teams that actually, like, you got the Kansas City Chiefs, let's say the Philadelphia Eagles, not Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, the New England Patriots, any team that's on the cusp of actually being a dynasty, they actually do it that way. It's about winning first. It's about winning first. And how they win it is based upon how the top of the head is orchestrated. So you're talking about Kraft, how he does business. You're talking about how Ed DeBarlo does business and everything else. Remember that, I don't know if anybody, I'm about to go back in history for a second with Ed DeBarlo, what he was able to do with the 49ers. Okay, the year that they won it last, I want to say the last Super Bowl, I think that was in 94. And they created this super team. Now, it's a bunch of has-been so forth, but it was a super team. I mean, that team was loaded. They had Ricky Jackson on that team. They had Richard Dent on that team. They had Ed McCaffrey on that team. They had Toy Cook on that team. They had the Giants Oates. They had Oates on their team. They had it was another guy that they brought over there. Of course, they had Deion Sanders. They were just loaded. Now you talk about a team that they're coming in with Ricky Waters. They're coming in with I believe like Ricky Waters, Dana Stubblefield, Eric Davis. You got John Taylor, Brent Jones. You have, of course, you got Steve Young. You got Jerry Rice. You're coming in with that already. So you're already loaded, right? That's equivalent to having LeBron James and you get LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And you go ahead and go get like a Rondo. You go get like a Dwight Howard. You go get a JaVale McGee. You go get Avery Bradley. You go get these different players, right? And you load up that team. That's equivalent to that. Now, that's what you call a super team. And the reason why it's a super team because you're already an elite team with just the two players. But you build on that with more players that's maybe not on their level, but once upon a time, they was at a very top level. The very, very, very top level. And you add that to your team because they may have regressed in terms of their They're in terms of skill or whatever the case may be, they may have regressed so that they're no longer on that level as they once was, but you can't take away what they got in their head. So you got a super team. The 49ers, when they built that team, and the point of me bringing that team, speaking about that team, Ed DeBarlo, that franchise, the 49ers franchise didn't have any money. So if you don't have any money as a franchise, how are you able to get all these players here for 1 year? You in other words, you work with what you have. So if they only had 10 million, how are you able to get all those players to come play here? You're not getting them for what they did when they was in their prime. You get them for what they know in their head. Because how the 49ers run as an organization based upon how Bill Walsh did it, if everybody does their job, we are the best team. If everybody do what they do, no, let me rephrase that. Not if everybody does a job. In that statement is everybody does a job to 100%. If everybody does their capability at 100%, we will be the best team. That's their philosophy. Now you understand where a team like Bill Belichick gets it from. If everybody does their job at 100%, we will come out being the best team. That's just the problem with the Lions. Everybody doesn't do their job at 100%. That's why you get a guy like, you could say, you get a guy like Jeff Okudah. He get drafted here, and he's willing to do 100%. Right? He's willing. He's coming out the gate and he's tackling. Right? And I'm like, whoa, he's a beast. Right? And I deemed him going to be better than Slay, and I still stand behind that. Now, the reason why Okudah would be a bust here is because everybody else is not giving their job at 100%. They're giving a job to the point of giving 50, let's say 65% or less. But they're getting is successful of the 65%, not successful, is not hurting the team per se. It doesn't get the team over the hump. It doesn't get the team to the hump, but it gets them in the striking distance of the eyesight of the hump. And as long as that's acceptable here with the fans will go ahead and say, okay, we can keep them. But that's based upon how the organization is ran. Until the organization changed that, like we're going to give our 100%. Not we're going to say we're going to give our 100%. That the ownership now can't stop at bringing those two ex-players in to help them find a general manager. That means even they had to evaluate Rod Wood. They had to evaluate everybody that exact same way. Not because you're familiar with this person or you trust them. You want the very 100% because that if you asking everybody else under you to do their 100%, that will require you to do your 100%. You can't. There's no room for favoritism. You can't have this person on because my family believed in him or he has stocks into the organization. You can't do it that way because you would keep doing it the way that you have been doing it. The rebuild starts at the top. It doesn't start at the bottom. It starts at the top. When you see a good organization or a great organization do rebuilds, it's basically at the top. And the reason why a lot of great organizations don't have to do a full rebuild because the organization is intact. And if the organization is intact, now you can just do these renovations. You can take out this place, take out this piece, and then it's like instantly. Say like, for example, with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, Kansas City Chiefs was, I won't say in contention, but it was in playoff, mode or that level where they have that mountain in sight. So you subtract that and you mean to tell me you go get one person like an Andy Reid and all of a sudden you are Super Bowl contenders? I mean, not 1 year, I'm talking about every year. And what is that to say is that everything else, when Andy Reid got there, everything else up at the top was already in place. All he had to do was bring what made him successful in Philadelphia. All that he learned in Philadelphia, all that he learned was up under, I believe he was up under the Green Bay Packers organization with the gentleman that came from the 49ers, the guy who got Brett Favre going. I can't think of his name. I'm drawing a blank. And I believe Andy Reid came from up under him, which basically is learning. If that's the case, then the coach that was at Green Bay at the time was learning up under, he came from the 49ers, which learned the template how to do it. And you see how that tree is successful. So And now you're talking about they learned up under Bill Walsh, who is the I would say of my modern era of football, he is the mastermind. Because I believe his tree, of all the people that came out of up under his tree, was the most successful tree, even more so than Bill Parcells or anybody else. I think he has the most successful tree. So with that being said, that's the reason why Andy Reid is able to go over to Kansas City and all of a sudden they not be in contention, but they win the Super Bowl. Because in fact, he doesn't have to do the top part. That when Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia came here, the top part wasn't in position at all. And if you notice, when Martha Ford took over, she cleaned house all up top, and they put more competent positions in there. Now, Miss Hamp is going to have to continue to do the exact same thing. The rebuild starts up top. It doesn't start on the players on the field. What you do up top will have you to bring in the players on the field. So if those who are up in the staff above Bill Belichick don't do their job, Bill Belichick can't bring what makes him great here to that organization. He's not able to do 100%. So going back to the point of Okudah, why Okudah is not a bust. Okudah is not a bust as number 3, and a person would say like they should never draft him at 3. I'm going to show you why he's perfect at number 3. He's perfect at number 3 because you don't have to tell him too much to be successful. Somebody could say, well, his success came from an elite defensive line. What? Now you understand his success. Detroit Lions is almost on the cusp of having an elite defensive line. People say, no, they're not. No, they're not. If they're able to do it right, let's say, for example, if they go get 2 more pieces to the defensive line, you have, now I'm banking on this, you have Danny Shelton, Pennicini, Trey Flowers. I don't know what you're going to do with Deshaun Hand. You could keep it or let it go. Either way, I would love to keep him because he actually has talent. But once again, you have to evaluate if he wants to give 100% or just 50%, and that 50% is enough. If you do it, if he comes in, he's willing. When he first got drafted, he was giving you 100%. But once you get around his atmosphere and you see how it's done, you don't want to do it. Now, if he chooses to do 100%, you keep it. That same thing goes with Jared Davis. If Jared Davis is giving you 100% max still of his ability, you can win with him. The reason why you can't win with a guy like Deshaun Hand or you let it go or Jared Davis when they don't give their 100% anymore, we will say they got lionized. Lionized is based upon how the organization runs their business. So the reason why I say Okudah is going to be dominant is because they finna if it goes back to the rebuild up top. If the new ownership not just get the most notable candidate and most popular candidate, most likable candidate, but they get the candidate, they have to have foresight and vision, but they have to have the appeal that players want to come play for them, even if they is not free agents or that, but the players that they have here, they want to give their 100% for them. They want to go through the wall for them. That's the candidate they need to get. They want to go through the wall for them. Now, the guy may not be the best talent, the best mindset per se, but if you get a guy that actually the team wants to go through the wall for, that's what made Jim Caldwell so good, because he had players that wanted to go through the wall for him. Now, only thing about it, he was limited to what he knew, so he only could go so far, and that's why you replace it. So if you're gonna get somebody young that the players will go through the wall for, you have a chance to grow with that general manager. That's why, okay, if I were to make an argument for, like I made a case for Peyton Manning, I believe instantly, unless he's like coming in arrogant or coming in like he knows more than everybody else because it's Detroit, which I think that's what happened to Quinn and Patricia. I believe that's what happened to them. I believe that they got beside themselves. Or Patricia did, Quinn didn't. And when they threw them out both as a set versus as individuals. So I made the case for Peyton Manning because he has no ties here. He would totally do it totally different unless for him to get the job, he had to do it the Lions way. If he comes in with his inventive way, like he's a very, very, very bright and smart guy. So I'm looking for him to give me 100% max of that. I can build off of that, even with no experience. I can develop a contender off of that max ability. The reason why I say that, I compare that to having a Tom Brady on my team. The equivalent to Peyton Manning not having experience in the upper management position is equivalent to Tom Brady not having the talent of an Aaron Rodgers. But what separates Tom Brady from Aaron Rodgers, or what makes, I would say, in my opinion, Tom Brady better than Aaron Rodgers, is not about ability. It's about what's in your head. Can you get out your own way to produce more? In other words, become a sponge. In most cases, if you have somewhat success on the level that you are, you can stay there because you're getting the fame, you're getting the money, and everything else is coming to you, but you won't go any higher. What makes Tom Brady so great is because he's not content. They would say he has that chip on his shoulder for being drafted at 6th round. What that is that that's not about that. It's much more that he says that I'm not content or satisfied with where I'm at, which means that gives him more room to learn, right? That makes that fuels that competitive nature in him, and so the competitive nature doesn't stop. He doesn't stop at being a competitive or being competitive. It actually feeds him more. So somebody say, well, then how come they can't do? How come they can't do that with Stafford? They can do that with Stafford, but how the organization is built, it won't allow Stafford to be able to do that. That's why I said you can't do it with Stafford here. And I'm basically saying, like, save Stafford's life, so to speak, because Stafford won't get out his own way. And so that's why I said you can't do it. It's like a recipe for disaster. Now, somebody said, unless you get somebody here that could tell Stafford, no. That's based upon how the ownership view it. They say that whoever comes in as the general manager, they want to keep Stafford, they keep Stafford. Well, if they're saying that, they're going to have to back that up 100%. That means if they decide to keep Stafford, you got to let them do Stafford how they want to do Stafford. You can't back up Stafford over the general manager or over the coach. You can't do that. You can't support that. If you're going to bring in a general manager, you got to let him do it his way. And that will go up against everything that the Fords have done it. Because the Fords mantra has been, don't cost us money. I'll give you just this amount of money to work with, which is smooth. That's actually good business. However, if you get the person if you get the wrong person in charge of that, they're gonna keep giving you the wrong results. And that's a good recipe for if you're able to hire the right person. But the only thing about it is you can't hire the right person when you still do business the wrong way. As long as you say, like, quantity is better than quality, then therefore you have a problem. So as long as the Fords do it that way, quality is better than quantity. As long as we're making more money than we actually producing quality, is good. As long as they do it that way, the Lions will never get a title. The last time they did it that way, where quality was better than quantity, is actually when it was one game away from the Super Bowl and when it was winning actually championships. That's when quality was better than quantity. As a whole, Detroit as a whole, back in that time when it was winning championships, they was in a very, very good place where it was producing quality. That's why the city looks totally different. From that time to this time where it's at now, it's like night and day. Because it wasn't about quality anymore. It was about quantity. It's about making money. So as long as you have those who are in a position that can actually make the money, as long as they're saying quality is better than quantity, the product is going to slip. It is a matter of time for it just collapse to the ground. There's no way that the Ford organization, the Ford Motor Company, shouldn't be the very best automotive in the business. They was one of the first ones to do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't be the very best, because you hold the template. And the very reason why you're not the very best, because you cheated it. You subtracted the quality for the quantity. People say that's shrewd business, but that's a can that you kick up the street that comes back and gets you. That's just business. That's not business. There's a difference between being rich and being prosperous. There's two different things. The Fords are rich. They're not prosperous. So there's a difference between why the organization, why this Lions team don't go anywhere. Because it's based upon how the head does it. Until that head changes his way, which is actually the rebuild. The rebuild is the Lions have rebuilt the from the general manager, the coaches, the player personnel for how many decades, and you still get the same result. So at some point, you can't say that they're doing it differently because they're doing it this way. No, Miss Hamp has to give 100% in every decision containing towards his franchise. Not 100% of what she knows, but 100% of what she don't know. That means she got to be willing to learn, not willing to say it because she's, willing to say it because it's the right thing to say. It's a good PR spin. But you got to be putting in the work of being, you got to study this team. That means this team has to be your heart and soul at this point. Now you would say it's more so about quality than it is quantity. But if that's not the case, you're going to constantly get the same results. You're going to get somewhat of a measure of an eyesight of success, and then it collapses because how it's built. Your foundation, the structure only is going to go as good as the foundation. And that's why my point is about with Matthew Stafford. And I want to go make the point about Joe Montana. The reason why Joe Montana, I use him as a top elite because same reason why I would say one of the two best quarterbacks between him and Tom Brady is because their success is not based upon their talent. Their success is based upon their ability to learn. And that's what separates them from every other quarterback they ever played. Where they're limited at, they make up in the ability to adapt and to learn. So somebody says like, well, if you put Tom Brady in Detroit, he won't be successful. Exactly, he won't, because you can't learn anything here. However, if you put him with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he can't help but to be successful. Why so? Because how that organization is already set up top, they don't need much. So that's why they're able to get a guy out of retirement, like in Bruce Arians. That's why they're able to get a guy like that, because they don't need much up top. They don't need anything up top. They just actually need a competent coach. And what I mean by competent coach is that he has done everything. He knows exactly what he needs, and he still will give you 100%. So the first thing he's saying is, this team has already got some pieces together for defense and all that. All right, all right. Let's go get Tom Brady by any means, because Tom Brady is polished. The wealth of knowledge a wealth of it, not just experience, but knowledge and ability to still have that competitive nature to still give 100%. He learned that from a bunner organization that didn't suck that away from him, but they added that to him. Now, he may have came in as a competitor in the 6th round, but a bunch of Bill Belichick, by Bill Belichick being that type of guy, that I'm not content with what I know. He's constantly learning, but he's the very best at what he's doing, but he's constantly learning. That's what makes him one of the great coaches. I say Bill Walsh is number 1, he's number 2. He's the great coaches because, in fact, he's still eager to learn. The reason why Bill Walsh stepped down because he had no more capacity to learn. And he tried to go to Stanford and it didn't work out. But the reason why he stepped down is not because they couldn't pay him, or it could have been they all could play a part. But I believe that he had nothing else in him. He had no more capacity to give 100%. And that's what makes Bill Belichick still good. All Bill Belichick needs is a quarterback that he can pour all what he knows into. How do you win with Castle and Jalapeno? That name, y'all, okay, Jimmy Galapagos, that name. How are you able to win with those two? Well, because he's able to pour into them to a certain extent. The only thing about it is they decided to go somewhere else, or a team gave him an offer where he was willing to put, let's say like he was coming to negotiate with them behind the scenes. And you still got Tom Brady playing at 100% at elite. He's not ready to tap out. Or you at the place where you don't put a player above the team, right? So you don't really need Castle. You don't need Jalapeno. That name. Jimmy G. Okay. That piece can give you more pieces, because that could go based upon the strategy. If I could keep them as my backup quarterback at a reasonable price, that it doesn't cost me like too much, because I got to keep everything as a team. What I mean by that, I can't overspend to pay the backup quarterback to stay on the team when I have other needs to address. So The So they got to make that kind of a choice. Which is the better deal? Do I trade him and get some assets back, even if it is at a loss of not having a quality backup for Tom Brady if something happens to him? You know, that's the gamble that I got to take. So that's how they done it. That same thing as me saying about them, the Lions getting rid of Matthew Stafford, trading them to one of those three teams. If they gave him, of course, uh, and I personally say this to Mr. Luke G. He gave an excellent point about the condition of letting go of Stafford, like in terms of for a first round. Now, if you let him go for like in the first round for a latter pick that's considered like equivalent to being a second, then it's not worth it. But Stafford is considered at this point of his career, whatever. It's like he's a third round pick. At the highest, you may get a second. But you get a team like Dallas that they don't have no they don't want to do no with Dak Prescott. And let's say like Jerry Jones is where he's at in his life and everything else. He wants to win, and you have no quarterback there to actually get him to win. You know, nothing's there. They I believe they got a backup quarterback over there, but I don't know about that. And it says, well, okay, what we got in the draft? Say, we got a first round pick and we're sitting at 15. They fit between 15 to 20. And it says, okay, call up the Lions and let's see if we can make a deal for Stafford. And they approached the Lions organization with this. Okay, they say, okay, we want Stafford, all right, and we understand how things going there and everything else, but we want Stafford here, and we wouldn't offer a first round pick and maybe a latter round, maybe like a first and a fifth. So like if they're sitting at from let's say 17 on down, you would have to probably give a 4+, right? A fourth round. So you're talking about a first and a fourth or something like that to get it. Okay. But, or they can make a more appealing move by saying, okay, we'll give you a first, that's at 17 on down. Maybe a fifth or sixth. And we'll bite half of the bullet of the cap cost. So like if there's a $20 cap hit, $20 million cap hit, they say we'll take 10. We'll take 10 off. As an organization, you're getting a first, possibly a fifth, and you're taking off 10 off the cap. Do you take it? Some fans may say no, because it's better to keep Stafford here because you don't have no guy to take over. Even if you have Stafford here, right where they are, right now. And of course, that all depends on who your general manager is. It all depends on who your head coach is, if you can win with Stafford or not. But I'm going to this situation right where it's at right now. And that's like they're being negotiated right now. And of course, the organization is at a standstill because they don't know who they're going to have in front office. So it depends on who you get. If you get a guy who wants a clean slate, and you're willing to give him that range to have a clean slate, you got to let him do it his way. And he says, like, Stafford is not part of that. So you have to make that kind of a move. Because even if it is a $10 million hit, as an owner, you have to say that I'm going 100% into my investment because I'm going for quality over quantity. Now, a fans may say like that doesn't make sense because you don't have a backup. Well, you do have a backup. You may just have to resign him in David Blau. Okay, now here's my moves with the new general manager. Let's say if I am the new general manager. Here's my moves. I'm saying if I were to keep Stafford, it's like Stafford is not playing at all. I mean, he's not playing. He's just there to be a tutor. He is just there to be a tutor. He's not playing. Because it's too much of a loss of an asset. Because I can't afford him to get hurt. Because he's just going to be what? Just a tutor. Otherwise, what I said that's too much of a loss because I could have traded that and got assets to help me move forward. It's clearly if I bring in a quarterback, I am in rebuild mode. Oh, I'm not rebuild mode. I'm looking forward towards the future, away from Stafford, because you brought in your hopefully the heir apparent. So if I keep Stafford, I'm bringing back David Blau. Why? Because David Blau has set up under Stafford, set up on his organization, and it knows how it's going to go. If it's up under Hamp, I mean, if she's going to do it the way she have done it, or how the Fours have done it, David Blau is my best candidate. Now, is he the best candidate over Trey Lance or any other quarterback that's coming out? No, I'm not going to say that. However, he is in. I don't have to teach him much about how everything is done. All he has to do is just play ball. And what I mean by that is somebody would say, like, well, he may not have the arm strength. He may not have the mobility. I don't need all that. I'm going to run my organization like 2 organizations. I'm going to run it like how the 49ers did it and how the Patriots done it. Now, I'm not going to do move for move like how they do it, but I'm going to run it the way how they ran it because they are the 2 most successful franchises in my opinion. You could say this, you could throw the Steelers in, you could throw the Cowboys in, but those are 2 franchises that won it in like several different decades and so forth. You could say the Cowboys did, you could say the Steelers did. Now, no, trash that. Let me change that. I would say Steelers is up there, definitely up there. Steelers, the 49ers, and I would say the Patriots. But the Patriots only won up under one brain trust, and that's in Bill Belichick and those who are up and up management. Only one in that way, but they haven't stepped away from that and then get back to going from the bottom back to the top. They haven't done that. So if I'm the Lions, I'm running my team the way they did it, starting with their quarterback, Joe Montana and Tom Brady. Am I saying David Blau is Joe Montana and Tom Brady? I'm definitely saying that. See, the fan would look at it like, no, you can't say that because look what they was able to do. No, you're looking at results at the end of their career. I'm talking about in terms of how they approach the game. They are one and the same. All I need is a quarterback that works at 100%, not competitiveness, but 100% effort every time. That's what makes Stafford great, right? But he stopped at his competitive nature. And most time his competitive nature gets the best of him. It's the best of him, but it gets the best of him. I need someone to know when to pull back, pull out, whatever. I need him to think on the field. So I need an open brain that I can pour all what I know into. There's a limited amount of room that I could pour into Stafford. That's why I say he's good for a franchise such as Elway, such a franchise with Jerry Jones, because now they can pour into all what they know to get him over the top. Take Stafford to a new franchise, a rebuilding franchise, and all that good stuff. That's a waste. That's equivalent to him being here. So unless you get a general manager that's already have got that plethora of information that they could support, just a little, all Stafford needs is just a drop inside of his brain. I mean, what I mean by a drop of knowledge inside of his game. That's all he needs. He don't need much. He's pretty much polished. All he just needs is just a drop. Unfortunately, the people they brought in here, they don't have that drop. This is where you get a guy like a Bill Belichick. That's why somebody would say Bill Belichick would make Matthew Stafford, whatever, because Matthew Stafford is already polished. He just needs that last drop of knowledge, how to win. And that would be that general manager, the head coach, whatever. They were already put in place for that. They either have that inside of them, or the organization itself is already ready for that. Jerry Jones don't have that inside of him, but the organization how it was built is ready for that. What I mean by that, he built his system off of Jimmy Johnson, so it's already intact for Stafford to be successful. Like, okay, John Elway would take what he had, what he knows, and put it inside of Stafford. He couldn't do that with Joe Flacco. He couldn't do that with any draft pick, because the draft picks, you got to pour all that into them. Now you're talking about so much knowledge that it overwhelms them. They're not ready for it. They really have to be that mature coming in. So And by being in Denver, they don't have time to do that because the fans expecting them to win and win now because they're used to winning, right? So that's why I say you can't really win here with the Lions unless you get a general manager or owner that has that last drop to him. And with that last drop to him, they can do something to put knowledge to his game. But that knowledge to his game won't be based upon Stafford. It will be based upon all the assets around Stafford. So their knowledge will be like Stafford. Only thing Stafford needs is what? A starting left guard, right? They have. I'm banking on Halapoulivaati Vitae being my right tackle. People say he's a bust. He's not a bust. You cut once again when they bring a player here, they're ready to give you 100%, 100% effort. That 100% is there's two types of 100%. There's the 100% what I've done somewhere else where everything around me was given 100%. And then there's 100% here where everything around me is not given 100%. All I got to do is give 50%, and that's equivalent to their 100%. So Halapoulivaati Vitae, if you get the right pieces at the head that everybody has to go through the wall for, willing to go through the wall for because they're given 100%, and they are like a sponge themselves. They're still learning. They're not content. They don't think that they know everything. They're continue to learn and evolve. That's a guy that you can follow because they're being a leader. So Halapoulivaati Vitae will get back into the form that he was in Philadelphia. Jamie Collins will get back to the form how he was in New England. The players that they brought here, Jeff Okudah, all the different players will get back to the form, whatever. This, back where they done it somewhere else that was successful. It starts with at the head. If there's no accountability with the head, there's nothing. I believe Bob Quinn came here and he was willing to give 100% and he was given 100%. But then it got to the point where he only could go so far. What I mean by that means what the next moves that he needs to do, he needs the organization to get out the way. But the Forest have always done it this way. Well, it's out of one or two things. Their results is based upon avenue. Well, we don't need to do more because the fans are still here. So we don't have to invest more into it. But Bob Quinn is coming from an organization that knows how to do it only one way. They're about quality. So take, for example, when New England brought in AB, Antonio Brown. And it's clearly Antonio Brown is one of the top talents what they're bringing in. That would be equivalent to them bringing Randy Moss. But it won't be Randy Moss, but that would be equivalent to be Randy Moss. Here's the difference between the two. The difference between Randy Moss and Antonio Brown, they both are in their ego. They both are inside the ego. But Randy Moss, the difference between him, he had room for what he learned up under Denny Green, up under Chris Carter, and this process of growth of life. He had a little room to be able to learn more. So if you hear him talk, he'd say the best team that he was a part of, he won't say the Minnesota when he had all his predominant success. He would say the best team he was a part of was a part of New England. So what does that to say is that he didn't have the ego that I know everything. I know it. Well, you can't refine me. You can't tell me I did everything I done in Minnesota. I'm who I am. What he said is they have that wealth of knowledge, and I'm humbled enough to take that wealth of knowledge to apply to my game. And that's why he would say that whatever. That's the difference between AB and Randy Moss. AB was like, I don't have to do that when he's with New England. And they have very little patience with that. That's what Albert Haynesworth, that's what anybody they bring in, Chad Osinko, anybody they bring in that was a name. If you don't have that room for to know more, then it won't work there. That's why Cam Newton doesn't work there. You can't have an ego because if your ego is based upon your accomplishment or based upon what other people have said about you, that has to be pushed aside for the sake of a team. So, okay, how it works here with the Lions organization. When a free agent comes here, they're coming off their success where they came from. But they're coming from an organization that has been successful. They may not have been successful as winning as an organization, but their organization as the level what I mean of success is that they give it 100% quality. Not quantity, quality. So they do it a certain way. Now, the team may not give you the final results. Like, okay, you got, say, for example, when they brought in Wagner, right, from the Baltimore Ravens. Now you can clearly see the two different franchises is ran totally different. Totally, entirely different. All right. So the people say, well, why Wagner didn't succeed here like he did there? You're only gonna go as high as your head goes. How the upper management does it here is not how they do it, how they did it there. Now, yeah, they offer them more money, but you're basically telling me you offer me more money to do it how you do it here. You're not offering me more money to do it how I did there. Because for me to do what I did there, you have to get out your way how you do it here. And that's the reason why Bob Quinn, and I'm saying Bob Quinn, not Patricia, Bob Quinn wasn't successful here. Now, the reason why Patricia wasn't successful here is because of the fact that he couldn't get out his own way. He couldn't take that next gear. That next gear is the ability to learn more. That's what separated him from being Bill Belichick. He was on the cusp of becoming it, but he thought he was him based upon the knowledge that he had inside of him. But what makes Bill Belichick so rare, same thing as Bill Walsh, what makes them so rare is that no matter the amount of information that they know or success that they have gotten, they're still eager to know more until they reach that point where they're like, I got no more room to know more. They tank out. And that's why Larry Brown was considered successful everywhere he went. He didn't always get you championships, but he would always bring your team that's from worst to first. He'd get you back up to the top every time. And how he was able to do that with Detroit, because he had to build a team. The team was always ready to go. So all the team needed from Larry Brown was just to take what he had inside of him and drop it. That's why Joe Dumars made that trade. I mean, made that move from going from Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle got you 50 wins for 2 years. Why would you fire that? You don't. You only fire that unless you got someone who has everything that Rick Carlisle has, but the only thing that this guy didn't have that Rick Carlisle had was the team that was assembled. Larry Brown had to always assemble his team. Once the team was assembled, that was as far as they can go. But when he came to Detroit, all he had to do was drop himself in the bucket. But then it got to the point where he didn't want to do it anymore, so he wanted to leave. That's what led him to go to New York. And that's why they didn't win that last championship, because the team revolted against them, because he was checked out. He did what he was brought there to do, is to get them over the top. Now it was time for him to go to his greener pasture to do his desires, which is what the coach at New York. Okay, but it may cost him more success to his legacy. But that's the point. What I'm saying with the Lions. Okay, the point what I'm saying about Patricia, he could have been successful if he wasn't content with what he knew. And the reason why I say he wasn't battle tested, he got battle tested when he was here. If he was battle tested somewhere else, it would have humbled him for him to put him in a position to. Well, no. It will put him in not humble him. It will put him in a position to be humbled, which means that I could go to the drawing board and learn more, or I could stay where I'm at and go no further. Here he came here and he gave you 100% of what he knew. The problem was that he didn't take the next gear. The next gear is that I shouldn't be content of what I know. I should be willing to learn more. But that's why he ran everybody away, because he was content with what he knew. But that was based off what he learned upon Bill Belichick. And he became better. In his eyesight, he actually came in with a chip on the shoulder that he's better than his organization based upon how the organization is running his organization. And which to some degree is actually true. But at the same time, it doesn't allow him to go forward, because he's stuck at far as of being content of what he knows versus going to the drawing board and learning more. That's what cost him his job here. And at the point, he really don't care, because here to get fired here is actually like a release from prison, because how they do it here, you can't. It's a recipe for disaster here, based upon how the organization runs it. It's not quality over quantity. It's quantity over quality. It has always been that. Until that change, and not in words. I'm talking about this Sheila Ford Hamp has to make this her baby. She can't make this like her job. This has to be her baby. When Jimmy Johnson took over Dallas Cowboys, that was his baby. When Uh, Bill Walsh, that was his baby. That Bill Belichick, that's his baby. So they're gonna fine tune it. They're gonna not let anything go above his. That's his care. And until the ownership looks at it like that, or they bring in somebody who looks at this is my baby. Everybody they bring in here, this is not their baby. This is just something to do. That's why it's like a desperate place to go to where you have to overpay mediocrity to be here. It's not their baby. They don't have to invest into it. It's like a person owning a house. No, yeah, it's equivalent to a person owning a house to a person renting a house. A person renting a house, they don't have to really take care of it unless taking care of it is inside of them. They won't be there long. They'll get their own because they will outgrow someone else's baby. But if it's not theirs, they don't care how, they really don't care how it goes. It could fall apart. They don't care. It's not theirs. It's not their baby. But if it is their baby and they care about if they have the willing to learn and willing to grow inside of them, then their baby would constantly continue to flourish. They would constantly build. It wouldn't subtract itself. It wouldn't be like every time they get a new window placed in, old window will fall out. Or no. That wouldn't be equivalent to having a new window but keeping the old window. They get all new windows because that's their baby. If one part flourish, all of it flourish. That's how they looks at it. Or all of it flourish is not based upon just going to do one area and then stop there. They want all of it to flourish when it becomes their baby. If it's not their baby, that's when they're at a standstill. They only could go so far, and that's why I think where Bob Quinn is stopped. Bob Quinn, this is not his baby. At the point when it's about to become his baby, the force is like, whoa, stop. But Patricia, if Bob Quinn was here, I believe that he would have fired Patricia. But I believe that when they approached them, I think it's best for both of us to go. So when it came out that they fired both, they looked like the Fords fired both. I think it was the Quinn was basically saying, if you're going to fire Patricia, I'm going to go out with him because I brought him here. So just fire us both. Even if I got to put my name on it that we both were fired. I believe that was the mutual consent. I believe that's what it is. So, and I believe that Bob Quinn is that type of guy, that he's a Class A guy. And I'm going to based upon what he brought here. Now, he may have brought here, some people say, well, the Jamie Collins is not working out. The Halapalooza Vitae is not working out. The Jesse James move is not working out. The moves that they're not working out. The moves will work out if they can honestly continue to do it their way. And what I mean by that, if you get a guy here, let's say like if you were to get a guy who can put this team over the top, who had the last wealth of knowledge that this team has never had, they can see what they're missing. And they won't have to tear it down. They can say like, okay, we need this guy in free agency. What is it going to take to get this guy? Well, it may cost us not signing Kenny Galladay. Let's say, for example, in my opinion, I'm going to go with this. Well, to get the guy that will get us over the top. Let's say like our problem with this, how they evaluating the team. Let's say, what is the main problem of this team going forward? Is it the quarterback? No. Is it the running game? No. Is it the receivers core? No. Is it tight ends? No. If it's the offensive line, you can say no. You can say you may add something there, but you can say no. Is it the secondary? You can say no. You can say the linebackers. You can say possibly. Is it the defensive line? You can say definitely. So that's where your investment goes. You could say if you get a defensive line, a dominant defensive line, you can actually, that upgrades your linebacker core, because now the linebacker core don't have to do more of their job based upon your defensive line being dominant. Now your defensive line doesn't have to be that dominant all the time, because now you got your linebacker core going at 100%. And the reason why your linebacker's not going at 100% is because, in fact, some are saying like, well, everything else not going 100%. Or you may have that one player that's willing to give you 100%, but their 100% is like in competitive nature, but it's not 100% as in having like a cerebral mind. So that's what makes a guy like Ray Lewis like so special, because he was 100% competitor, but 100% cerebral. He's like a rare find. That's what makes Lawrence Taylor like a man among boys, because he was 100% competitor talent, and um, he had the capacity of a visionary. He could just see. So unless you have that on your linebacker core now, you're gonna get a guy that's gonna give you 100% effort, but may not see everything 100%. They don't have that guy here. So can you get that guy in the draft? Possibly. No, but I don't see him in the draft. Not this year. And that's the reason why I'm not getting a guy like Isaiah Simmons last year. Because the guy in Jeff Okudah, he's not a 100% competitor. He sees the things 100%. In a way, that somebody said, how you go by that? I'm going by what he did in Ohio State, not what he did with the Lions. The reason I said, somebody said that's not fair, but I'm going to say the reason why it's fair, because what was around him in Ohio State will allow him to use his maximum ability at his maximum ability. He don't have to worry about what the defensive line is doing. He have to worry about the linebackers is doing. He have to worry about anything. All he have to do is concern about his job. Now, I say that to say that at the cost of not bringing back Kenny Golladay, I will go after a guy like, okay, I think his name is Bud Dupree or something Dupree, the guy from the Steelers organization. Now, I know a little bit about him, but I don't know a lot about him. I know that he gave 100% with the Steelers organization. So that means I will need somebody if I'm the general manager, I will have to give 100%, not just in competitiveness, but as a visionary, that's like being cerebral, that's IQ, that's everything, going through the wall, and everything that I do 100%. Because I'm making this my baby. That's the only way I'm gonna get everybody else to follow me. I can try to sell them that I'm doing that, but that they will see through that at some point and they will tank out, which is what everybody has done up under Patricia. They will see Patricia as selling that he's giving 100%. They will see that he's not backing up what he's talking about. He's not going to war for putting all the effort in his game. He just giving you what he learned from New England, which that's what cost him his job. That's why cost him his job, because the reason why he couldn't succeed because he stopped there. But anyway, so if I were to bring in my coach, me as the general manager, I'm willing to go to 100% because I'm going to make this my baby, right? That would be equivalent to the force giving me everything, all the power that I need to make this my baby. Not money is not the power. The vision is the power. The competitiveness is the power. But I need both components, whatever, and to be able to see talent. Of course, that would be part of the vision. So I don't know what candidate is suitable for that as a general manager. Only guy that comes to mind is like a guy like Peyton Manning. Now, he may have zero experience as a front office guy, but I'm going by what he showed me on like as a person or on the field. Like he gives 100% max of what he does. Even in his commercials, he gives 100% max because that's just who he is. But I could go by and say that that's how he's groomed up under his father. 100% max. But anyway, so at the cost of Golladay, I'm taking build up my defensive line first. And who's the guy that I'm looking for? A guy that's going to give me 100% effort, and not just 100% effort, but 100% has visionary, who has the room to pour in for more. He's young. He's clearly an upgrade over than what we have, and in that capacity of being cerebral and effort, talent and all that good stuff. I'm gonna say he's a complete package, but on the market, he's arguably the complete package, right? So that's the reason why I don't go after a guy like Jones, like when last year's free agency. I don't overpay to bring a guy like that. Anyway, let's go somewhere else. So I bring in him, right? That's a starting spot. That's a starting spot of building my defensive line. I have Trey Flowers, I have Pennicini, I have Danny Shelton, along with Dupree, Flowers, and if I could bring back Deshaun Ham, Deshaun Ham wanted to break the bank. I don't know if they gonna bring him back for an option. I don't know if they have that player option. I don't know how that goes. If they do, they bring him back. If they don't, they go into the draft, and you got something to build off. You got Dupree, Flowers, Danny Shelton, Pennicini, right? Going into my next year, I could build off of that. That already is going to make my defense, my linebacker core better. Why? Because I can get when I'm scouting for my linebacker core now, I'm looking for guys that complement that defensive line. Each one of those guys would clearly do their job. I don't have to worry about them doing their job because they do their job. So now I go to the linebacker core and go get a guy that does his job. He could be in the 6th round. And that's why I could keep a guy like Jared Davis, because I could put him in position to do his job versus put him in position to do every job. And that's why I believe where Patricia went wrong, because he wasn't humbled enough to see the fact of where he's going wrong at. He doesn't know everything. What I mean by that, he's not willing to go to the drawing board to learn more. He's stuck with what he knows. And what he knows may be above a lot of people, but that's just it. He's not willing to take that next step level. That's what makes a person who has talent stuck at talent versus being a Hall of Famer. You're stuck at talent. There's a lot of talented players, and there's a lot of talented players that's at a level that that is more talented than the next. But what makes you elite is that you can go to the drawing board and learn. This is where you hear the guys like Jerry Rice or a guy like Deion Sanders. They say they would study. When Deion Sanders said he had to go up against a Chris Carter or Jerry Rice or Michael Irvin or Sterling Sharp, he studied them. He go in the film and he studied them. And he looked at their techniques, what he can do, what he can't do, because he know it's not based upon talent with them, because those guys, they work hard. So his talent is based upon speed and agility and all that good stuff, and maybe awareness. But none of that's good if you can't if you can't willing to outwork the guys who outwork their opponents. Those guys are known for not being the fastest, not being the strongest. They're not known for none of that, but they're known for outworking you. And as long as you got a guy that's willing to outwork you, you got a guy that basically predominantly going to win majority of the battles. So with that being said, yeah, you go get a guy that basically, like Jared Davis is like a guy that you can put him on this team and he could be successful. I don't know if they're going to pick up his option or not, but you could do that. And yeah, and I close out with that. This organization is not the organization needs a rebuild, but not the rebuild that people think that it does need. It doesn't need to rebuild in terms of from player personnel. It needs a rebuild from the organization personnel, how they do business. It has to be quality over quantity, not because they say it, because that's how they do business. If they don't do business like that, the business is not going to be done like that. The field is going to, no matter who they bring in here, because if they get a guy who, or say that, let's say for example, if the ownership doesn't do quality over quantity, then the person they're going to bring in here, let's say they bring in a person that does quality over quantity, and we're going to lean off their shoulders. All right. But then there's one or two things going to have to happen. One or two things will happen. Either you will get in the way because of what you're going to go about, how you do business, or you're going to get out the way because you're going to allow them to have a clean slate to do business, which will go up against how you do business. So any which way I go, you're asking for the organization to change how they do business, how they do things. With that being said, Lion fans, I salute.